Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Presiding Member, we are gathered today to pay tribute to three of our past members of this House. First among them, I must say a few words about the former Secretary of the Sri Lanka Communist Party, the late KP Silva. KP and I entered Parliament in the same year, in 1994. Both of us entered this House as nationalist members of the People's Alliance then. We were also secretaries of our own parties. So we would meet very regularly in the chambers of late Dharmasiri Senanayaka, who was the secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, who would summon us meeting. We would have arguments about nomination lists. We'll have arguments about timing of election and variety of other issues we had with the then People's Alliance. And he, KP Silva, as a very diminutive person, he may not have had the personality that would be seen as a very overpowering personality compared to his other comrades, S.A. Wickramasinghe, Peter Kenneman, and even Sarath Muttettuwagama and others, who were very colourful personalities gifted with silver tongue, I would say. When Sarath Muttettuwagama was in this House, he would outshine everyone in his oratory. So the Communist Party, being one of the oldest parties in this country, owes a lot to an unsung hero like KP Silva. He was the one who started the 1946-47 government strike from the government factory in Kolonnawa. That shook the then colonial government. Finally, when the leaders, and he was then with the Lanka Samasamaja Party, I must say, when his leaders like Dr. Colvinard Silva and Dr. N.M. Pereira had to seek exile in India, it was people like KP Silva who had secretly kept the party going while their leaders were in exile. And then, with the effluxion of time, though the Communist Party may have lost its share of power, they, particularly in the 17 years since 1977, the 17-year UNP rule, they remained together with the other left forces and kept the opposition going with Mrs. Bandaranaike at the helm. But with the civic rights being removed, with variety of different challenges, it was people like Mr. KP Silva, together with their colleagues, who kept the flag of the leftist political front survive the juggernaut of the then UNP government. The atrocities and difficulties they faced, and even the JVP insurrection and its wrath, which brought about death penalties to many of these leaders. Rajitha is here. He will testify to the formation of the United Socialist Alliance. When the Sri Lanka Freedom Party boycotted the first provincial council elections, it was the formation of the USA which was able to give a formidable challenge to the then UNP who would have otherwise run away with a landslide victory in the provincial elections. So people like KP Silva had to be remembered for their courage in keeping the party intact, and particularly that period between 77 to 94 until he entered Parliament was the most difficult period for the left parties. And he was the General Secretary of the Communist Party then. And it is such a personality with whom we have had that camaraderie and company in this House, and I treasure it very much, and I pay my heartfelt tribute to a fallen colleague. And with that, I must say a few words about the late Surangani Ellawala, who, for all purposes, perhaps reluctantly was pushed into politics, because not only her dear husband Nanda had passed away a long time ago, but subsequent to the death of his dear son, her dear son Nalanda, who was one of our colleagues, I had the opportunity of leading a parliamentary delegation to a few countries where Nalanda was a member. Dilan would remember, and so was Dallas Alahapperuma and various others when I led those parliamentary delegations abroad. Nalanda was a unique personality. He would enliven any gathering. He's an entertainer par excellence. I remember his guitar and the strings which would dance to his tune. He would keep us all enthralled with his ability to sing all the time, keep us all happy. And he would, when he starts cracking jokes, all of us have rib-tickling laughter. So he was such a lively personality, and unfortunately, when he died in Kuruvita on that day, it was such a shock to all of us. We all rushed there, and we were so saddened by his demise. If he lived, he would have been one of the senior ministers in the front benches. Though fate didn't spare him for us, his mother took to politics and entered the provincial council, became a minister, and subsequently entered this house. When she contested the provincial council elections, such was the stature of Ellawala legacy that she scored the highest preference vote in the Ratnapura district in that provincial elections. And she was made a minister in that government, in the provincial government, and subsequently she entered this house and was there with us, I believe, from 2001 to 2004. But as it always happens, people think when women enter politics, it is not by design, but by default, because one of their dear members in the family would have departed, and that's how ladies get into politics. So was Mrs. Bandaranayaka. None expected the reluctant widow to rise up to the level of one of the strongest political leaders that Asia ever produced. So we could never underestimate the ability of Mrs. Surangani Ellawala. She was a gifted writer. She was bestowed a national award for her Sinhala writing. And that's what Honorable Dallas Alahapperuma recited, the poetry that she had written when Nalanda had departed. So she was not only a gifted writer, she was a leader whom people could always endear themselves to. And that is why though she was not in the limelight in the front lines, she always was able to keep the bastion of Ratnapura as a pocket borough of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. So she had made immense contribution to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and its success. But unfortunately, since 2004, none of the leaders of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party were able to decorate her with the position. But I must thank the former president, Maithripala Sirisena, saw it fit to bestow her with the governorship of the central province. Whenever I approach her, because I represent the Kandy district for whatever work, she was there for a very short period. She would endearingly refer to me as a good friend of her son and would always be available to do whatever she could, though I was from a different political formation opposed to their own political ideologies. But that never mattered to her. She was always forthcoming to do whatever she could. And I would like to extend my heartfelt condolences to Visakha, her daughter, the only surviving member of that family, and of course Akila, who is now here in this house. and would wish that she attains Nibbana, that is according to her own faith. With those words, I would also add a few words on behalf of, in memory of Kapila Abeyratne, who also had the opportunity to enter this house because of the demise of late Nanda Ellawala. He came to this house, but when he came in here, he was a well-known personality in Ratnapura politics. He had adorned the mayorship of the Ratnapura Municipal Council, and that too during the most difficult period for the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, from 1979 to 1990s. Though that was a period in which Kapila was the mayor of Ratnapura. So it was not such an easy place with the Punchinila in power in that area. So Kapila, being a lawyer, he had, I'm sure, had the courage of his conviction to face up to the challenges and keep the flag flying of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. And finally, he was rewarded in coming to this house. Though he served only a very short term in this house, he too is being remembered for his service to his party and for that long period in which he served in the local politics and in this house for a few years. He is not only, he was like Surangani, he too had two other members of his family as mayors of Ratnapura, his brother as well as his father. So he too has to be remembered and be paid this tribute today in this house for that valuable service they rendered. With those words, I would extend my sympathies on behalf of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress to the families of the departed members. Thank you.